I don't want to just believe something because somebody told me it. I want you to have a conversation with me. Like I want to be able to like push back on your thoughts and you not just drop the conversation because
or feel like it's disrespect. When we talk about deconstruction, it's often Gen Z that's leading the way. They're not afraid to question the church that they grew up in. They're not afraid to question their faith or to wrestle openly with doubts about God and their faith. For some leaders, that's scary. But for missionaries, it's an opportunity. Today, we've invited young voices to the table to share what deconstruction looks like for them and for what the church needs to hear if they want to reach and disciple Gen Z. I am partial to these Gen Zers because we go to church together, and one of them is my son. Welcome, everyone.
How's it going?
That's good. I'm just trying to figure out is their partiality going to show favoritism? Or like, what is it going to look like?
I'm partial to these Gen Zers because I love them.
Okay.
Okay.
It's okay. Love them. I am with it. You know, and I'm also partial. I mean, these are my people here at the church, and I'm also partial to Gen Z, being a father of 6 Gen Zers.
We got 10 between us, right?
You
oh,
know,
no, we got some alphas?
You know, no, I don't have any alphas. I have all Gen Zers right now. So it is something that I live every single day.
You got it.
You know, working and talking with these Gen Zers. But, you know, hey, I love it. So I am also partial to Gen Z.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome. Guys? Welcome.
How's it going?
Introduce yourself.
Yes.
Introduce yourself.
Go ahead.
Ladies first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angelica. I am a zillennial, you know, in between. I go to Blueprint Church. Happy to share my experiences with y'all.
We're glad to have you, friend.
Yes. And my name's Jeremiah. I am Miss Missy Branch's son. And I work closely with Dhati. But yeah, I'm here as an urban minister. I lead the college ministry here at Blueprint Church. And so this is especially pertinent conversation for me.
Yeah, and I'm repping the BPU
yes,
attire,
sir.
The gear.
Shout out BPU.
You know? So I'm excited. You use the term zillennial.
Yes.
For those of us that don't understand that language, what are we talking about?
Well, I consider myself a zillennial because I feel like I relate to both aspects of the millennial generation and aspects of the Gen Z generation.
Makes sense.
And I have older siblings. I was just saying this before the show. I feel like those with older siblings, like I know dial-up. I know whatever else you guys want to talk about.
No, she didn't say the dial-up. Do you know
she know dial-up.
Do you know payphone?
Yes.
Have you seen a payphone
yes,
in your life?
I have.
Okay.
Floppy disks. Okay.
Okay. We're coming with
She's
it.
legit.
I love it.
We accept you.
Yes. Wait a minute. You said we accept you. Are you a millennial?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm just trying to see what you know. I'm just trying to see what we're talking about.
Coming up. We all trying to be like,
I'm just loving it.
I love it.
All right. So, I mean, we've been talking on the kind of this block to talk about like this idea of deconstruction, reconstruction, right, and just all of that. And so, right now, we're just talking about like in the concept of the Gen Z, right, and this deconstruction and all that. And I think Gen Z is just like the younger, right, and you know, especially as we're talking about there's different challenges, different things that are faced. And so when you guys hear the word Gen Z, right, or your journey, your faith journey, or well, how would you describe that?
Yeah, I think for me, one, I am the oldest of my siblings, but I have some older friends who are like brothers to me. And even I wound up skipping a grade. Just starting school early and skipping kindergarten, going straight to first. So I was always kind of the younger and in the group. And in some ways I was protected. I was protected from my parents just shielding me from the harsh realities of growing up in Philly. And so to some degree, there's that aspect where the world felt safe while I was young, and then later on had to realize some harsh realities and learn through those. Also, I still spent a lot of time exploring and having the freedom to explore in ways that my dad would say, like my dad would get angry when I would ask a question and then just go instantly search the answer. He'd be like, "You don't have to go to the library no more. You don't." We used to have to just wonder, and I wouldn't wonder. I would just, and
Go
so
find it.
I think it had benefits for my faith. I think it had some downsides as well.
I'm like similar and different at the same time. I'm collectively the youngest out of my siblings, but I feel like I tend to be the older side of my friend groups. So having that younger perspective, or like people looking to me to help, whether it's in the faith or in life. But like kind of what Jeremiah was saying about just having the world at our fingertips from such a young age, I wasn't just wrestling with what my mom was telling me in the home or what the church was telling me in the home. Like I have exposure, and I've always had exposure to what's going on in the world, and to search up whatever I want to search up, look for answers in different places, which I think is like very unique to our generation and the generations below us.
If you were to think through your faith journey, I mean, you obviously are still here. I know for me growing up, church was, while it was about God, it was really about my friends. It was about, this was a community that was safe for me. What would you say would be the thing that has kept you? Was it, no, it's my relationship with the Lord, or this is not, of course, your relationship with the Lord, but, or just the studying, the growth, the Bible studies, or was it, I have community with these people and we share that?
I think for me, growing up, I did grow up in a church that encouraged me to ask questions. And I felt like that gave me a good foundation of what I believe in. Like, I'm not just receiving what you're telling me and taking it as truth. I'm able to push back and ask questions. And then as I became an adult, I think college is the turning point, honestly, because no one was forcing me to go to church. No one was forcing me to read my Bible. And I was just having experiences that shifted from, this is the God of my church, my mom, all these people that could tell their own testimonies of what God has did for them, to, oh, I'm seeing God active in my life through my situations.
Yes.
And so those experiences definitely have kept me and grounded me. But then the next shift is like studying not for myself, because I feel like people shouldn't do things in silos, but I love like apologetics and like understanding and being able to explain and defend why I believe the things I believe. So definitely personal time and personal experiences with God. So.
I love that.
Yeah. For me, I think it was strongly community that kept me up until basically I moved out for the first time. Up until then, it was just the way that we lived, the way that we thought. There were people who were intentional about discipling me. There were some who maybe weren't discipling me, but they were always around and I got to witness their lifestyle. And it was just, I was surrounded by it. And so it was just the air I breathed for a really long time. And then I got into the world for myself. And that's when I think those beliefs were first challenged. And now it's become something that I can claim for myself. And I did have to make those decisions about like, what do I believe? Why do I believe it for myself? And I can say that now, but growing up in my faith journey was heavily just the air I breathe, the community. And I think that a lot of Gen Z that grew up in the church, even those that are deconstructing now or have deconstructed, that was probably their story as well.
Yeah, as someone who's, again, raising the kids, my kids being Gen Z, one of the things that I recognize, my oldest daughter is 23. Or about to turn 23 years old, and you just look back over her times when she became like knowledgeable about what's going on in the world, and you just start thinking that was, if you think about 12 years ago, we're going about 3 or 4 presidents. This is where you're starting to see all the people, being shot. You're starting to see white evangelicals' response to certain things. You're starting to see the rise of, of just like the vision, the trauma. You have COVID, you have, and so oftentimes you hear about Gen Z being called the anxious generation. And then I started thinking think about what Gen Z has been through, in the times that we have. I mean, we've experienced some things that only happen once in a lifetime, once in a century, all of that's taking place and what's going on. And so like a lot of my kids and my friends was asking questions like, it feels, because as believers we were just older believers, we were just taught like, you just don't question God, just just believe, just have faith and those types of things. But there was this, like, I remember just hearing, like, I feel like you guys are protecting God, because if there's a God, why is there so much trauma? Why is there so much tragedy? Why is the fear of going to school, because like the shootings, Columbine, like there's like afraid to go to school, the protests, like all of this is taking place. And these are types of traumas that we didn't have to experience per se growing up. When ours big thing growing up in Cali, I just have to worry about the earthquake. If the floor starts moving, go underneath that door, get under your desk.
Okay.
Like that's
a special kind of trauma.
Hey, but listen though, but it's better than being in the earth. It's better than being in a tornado.
Yeah.
It's better than being shot at.
Yeah. It is.
Yes.
But I guess it's like, my point is there's so much, trauma that Gen Z goes. And so it's just like, if you did not allow them to question,
Absolutely,
oftentimes is just kind of like, man, I think it would plummet so many in the faith. But on the flip side, you also see that Gen Z is they're activists. They're just like, let's gotta change things. We can't just allow the status quo just to remain and be the same. And so, so that's why I love about the generation, but it's just like in the stage. And I'm looking forward to seeing, okay, well, what is this going to look like as you grow?
Yeah.
Right. Into adult.
Okay. So I hear we talk about COVID, we talk about school shootings, different presidents. So much has happened in your lifetime that a lot of people have not seen in one generation. What are those faith experiences? What are those moments? What are those things that have shaped your faith? That this is the thing that has happened that I'm like, oh man, okay, I'm different now.
I've always said that I feel like we have witnessed too many deaths at our fingertip, and it's not normal. And it would get to the point where I would have to go on social media breaks. Like, I don't want to see people dying. I don't want to see all these dead bodies on my screen. And it would affect my mental health a lot. And to your question of like, what are the moments that have shaped my faith? When my father passed, I remember like just being so alone, so in my thoughts about everything that I wanted and expected to happen before he passed away, and just praying and crying out to God and feeling like I always remember feeling his peace in my bedroom one night, and that experience like changing how I see God. And so with all of these experiences, a lot of the times what I pray for people is that like through tragedy, you can experience either the peace of God or some aspect and some face of God that you wouldn't have experienced outside of that. So even as the world keeps getting darker, even as we keep seeing all these deaths, all of these things happening in the world, I still see it as pockets for God to reveal himself to people in very tangible ways that they wouldn't experience him outside of it. So that's one thing for me.
Yeah. I'm going to probably come at it from a different angle. You guys mentioned activism being a mark of our generation. And for me, I think that seeing so much death, struggle, hard things, not just one online, but two, just growing up like in Philly and different things, the things that came with, I kind of became numb to feeling any emotion towards these things. I didn't feel like being an activist because it's just like, this is just how life is. And I think I got very individualistic. So I said community was big for me. As I got older and was able to make my own decisions, I was more focused on myself, my family, the people I cared about, and what I was doing. And that's kind of all I could. And kind of almost thinking like a pressure's on me to be the best version I can to protect everything that I've got going on, because this world will be so harsh to me. And so I think one of the strong things that I think it affected my faith in a lot of ways negatively, like I was focused on answering my questions. I was focusing on how does God fulfill my desires, or what really, it wasn't even about faith or about what God was doing or not. I just lived for myself and for what I felt. And I think one thing that strongly helped me was community. It was people being around me. It was even times where I was backslidden. It was friends coming to me and being like, hey, I went to my church and I confessed, and the way that they surrounded me with love We had conversations and just getting a picture of the church in a different light, in a positive light, seeing them doing better than I was. It was a testimony for me. And then that kind of drew me back and said, hey, I can come back and confess. And the love that I felt from my family, from the church, from people around, in their attempts to do it right, really helped me it reminded me who God is and who his character is. And then began the investigation into what do I really believe,
How much of what you really believe do you feel like is formed based upon your lived experience, in-person lived experience versus your online lived experience versus like, that idea? Because we oftentimes talk about like, where's our formation coming from, right? As missionaries, discipleship, disciple making. And so people are like running to try to get discipleship online and things. How does that, like the lived experience, because we learned about the kind of the iPhone. I remember when the Palm Pilot first came out, so we learned.
You remember when beepers came out, right?
Because I remember, because like, for instance, when tragedy first happened with the Rodney King and the LA riots, right? 93, right? I remember getting the 911 page on the beeper, right? It was a 911 page. I was in LA. We got the 911, like, you had all type of things. You had to read it backwards and all of that to try to figure out what they were trying to decipher.
Because there was no text. So you took the numbers and creatively reused them to create words. Like hello was a 4 upside down and an E and a 7. I think I
You said read it backwards. I'm like, what do you mean?
Yes, you had to decipher.
You had to decipher it. And so that was like our day. But now we're in the time where, like you said, you can just look at your phone. You can get all the information, the wonder and all those things. So I guess what I'm talking, when it comes to your formation and all that, I mean, how does that impact in lived experiences and lived online experiences?
Yeah. I think for me, one, there is a good mixture, but I would say like I spend a lot, probably an unhealthy amount of time online. Like, and that in essence helps me to feel connected to whatever culture. And once again, that hyper individualization, it's like if I don't have friends around me who are passionate about the same thing, then I can just go online and learn about the topics that I care about and find that community. And I find with some of my friends, like my closest friends that I disagree with on different issues, they're getting a pipeline of all the information they want to hear, all the statistics they need. Really, they don't even have to go research. It comes to them. Right. And then they're spouting out what they hear into those arguments or into those discussions, reposting those things. And so the information comes to me. Once I've trained my algorithm, this is what I like, it comes to me. And then it says, here are some things that I think you might like. And that's kind of had a big impact on forming like my personality and the way that I think about things, the way that I view things and approach things. And it's been in healthy ways in some ways, and then, or like it's been helpful in some ways, but it's been unhealthy in other ways. And there's a good and bad side to it. I do like the access to resources when I have questions, when, if I'm evangelizing and someone asks me a tough question, and I'm like,
bam,
that's a good question. Boom, pull it up. And I get to have answers. But then I have access to everything, and it's up to me to figure out what's credible, what's not credible, whose opinion. And then even then, because it's a buffet, it's basically like, which one do I agree with most, or which one makes the most sense to me? If I listen to 4 different viewpoints, I get to just pick. Before it was like, here's what we believe and here's why and stuff like that. So yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to it.
So you were formed you would say your experience was more online.
Yeah, I think earlier it was in person, but I think as I've gotten, older, my parents, just to clarify, my parents didn't let me own a cell phone until I could pay for it. So, so I didn't have full access to online when I wasn't like in school or with friends until I got old enough to pay.
So what emotional trauma has that caused you by not having?
I'm scarred.
Scarred.
There is some.
Guess who's not scarred?
Wallet.
Amen.
I will say, I mean, we don't have to unpack it, but when I was 15, I got a phone when I was 16. When I was 15, my family we moved from Philadelphia with all my friends, with all my community, to North Carolina, and all I had was a house phone and no numbers. And I know back in the day, y'all used to memorize numbers and then, spin the circle, but we didn't memorize
I
them.
mean,
Did he
is
say,
this shot
did he say
fired?
spin the circle?
Is this shot
He
fired?
That's
shot
what he
first,
said.
talking
He
about
said
what
spin the
trauma.
circle.
Angry with
No,
me.
that's it.
I lost connection with a lot
I
of
feel like he's
friends that
angry
way.
with
A lot
me.
of
No, that's
community. I was
completely valid.
ungrounded from those friends, and then I would get calls, to the numbness piece. For me, I would get calls. So and so died. So and so got shot.
Yes.
So and so got killed in a hit and
Because
run
of where you
from
left.
one of the friends, and I
Yeah.
wasn't even able to connect with them. So
Yeah.
one of the benefits of social media is continuing to be able to stay up to
Amen.
date with your friends, and I didn't have access to that because I got it later than some of my
Yeah,
friends.
so many benefits. I think there's lots of benefits. But what about you?
I was just like touching on the point of how accessible it's been for our faith and just the pros and cons of that. Like I remember growing up, it's not like you're going to social media for a religious video or something. I might be scrolling and I see one as a high schooler and I'm like, oh, if I scroll away, Jesus is gonna be mad at me. Like that's like that's like the very
Right,
foundational.
right.
But now it's
Yeah.
like I've realized how much I can't take for face value online. If I'm seeing like a 30-minute or 30-second, 5-minute clip of somebody's sermon, I can't just say this is their point. This was the point they're trying to make versus people are clipping and sharing things for a purpose. And I might not always agree with that. I think it's taught me to have to go back and research before forming an opinion on things, especially with what's going on in the world. And then to Jeremiah's point, like whether they're a false teacher or a real teacher, whether you just became a Christian or not, everybody has these microphones that they can buy and start sharing with
Sure.
people. And I'm very hesitant. I'm very hesitant to like just take in new preachers or speakers that I don't know and I haven't
That's why.
like certified for myself just because I don't know what they're saying. Like a lot of people are just saying crazy things. So
Would you say that's common? Like your take on that is common amongst other people on Gen Zers, or is that something like that's just a form of your maturation process?
I think more the latter because I'm a twin and my sister and I talk a lot. And there have been times where like she'll tell me something is happening or like try to reiterate a story. And I'm like, can you just send me the full video so I can, before I comment, before I form this
Right.
opinion, can you send me the full video? Because I think whoever is trying to tell you these things may have said it with already their like biases added to it. And I noticed that with a lot of my friends and a lot of people in our generation. Like you said, you don't realize that you're getting a single view of a story. Like all of my timeline is telling me one thing about
One
this
story.
event, and all of your enemy, all of the other person's timeline is telling them a completely opposite opinion. And the truth is usually somewhere in the middle, or the truth could be what I'm already seeing, but it's just like honestly, the 2016 election is probably what made me realize that what I'm seeing is not what the world is seeing. Because I was in a very democratic state and Hillary Clinton was winning that election, but then the results were different. That's when I realized, oh, I'm being fed something that is not what everybody
Everyone
else
is
sees. So
I will say the latter is right. There is a sense of based upon your maturity because there are conversations you would have with adults twice your age who can't grasp this is not real. Someone has made that up and it's just designed to have you be angry. And so, yeah, I just want to commend you on that.
And
amen.
I'll say this. I think that's why it's more of the former. I think Gen Z does interrogate everything that doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
So like, and you'll see like our generation kind of clowning, older generations who can't tell something's AI. And then now because everything's AI, there's always something. And there's a lot of arguments and comments and people can chat GPT stats and they can, I think on X, there's like Grok and you can just be like, hey, Grok, explain this for this person that's sounding dumb. Like, so we have so much information that I think we do interrogate everything that doesn't feel safe, but we can get siloed because we're hyper individualistic, we can get siloed into what we believe. And it's hard to break that down.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you, because oftentimes when we talk about Gen Z, we're talking about how, Gen X's or millennials or whatever reaches Gen Z. How does another Gen Zer live missionally towards other Gen Zers, right? Like understanding that you guys have some of these commonalities and those who have trusted in Jesus, like what are some ways that you say to reach other Gen Zers?
I would say two things, like try and find what they're searching for in their core, and meeting that need, or showing how Jesus meets that need. A lot of people might be just longing for community, and so that's why they're doing this. A lot of people might just want a space to be creative. A lot of people might be looking for a father figure. That's why, like, they'll run to someone with a strong, like, Andrew Tate or something like that. So finding that need, and seeing how you can meet that, or explaining how Jesus, but not just explaining, embodying. And just being friends, like community. Because I think that some of my friends who have differing views than me, they would be more extreme on their side, but then they have to face me in real life, and they can't talk that way. But we'll have conversations, and they'll realize, oh, this point of view does affect this person. And that, because I'm a friend, and because they're a real friend, we're able to understand each other, and it's helped bring us closer to center on those issues. And so I think just presence, and then finding what is the core of what they're searching for, and how can I help meet that, or how can I help point to how Jesus meets that.
I was gonna say, I don't think you should try not to assume you know what someone believes and everything underneath that. Like somebody saying a statement of I support I'm pro-life shouldn't automatically mean every assumption you have with someone that says they're pro-life or they're pro-choice falls with that person. And I feel like having the conversations with people to understand their point of view, because you'll
Yeah.
often attack something that they don't even subscribe to, but you didn't give them the chance to like explain their point.
Yeah.
I also think like when relating to older generations, and especially in a Nigerian culture, we are just taught to respect. And I love respecting like my elders and everything, but there's not the two-way respect given. And a lot of times it's just what I told you is truth and I don't need to tell you anything else. And you shouldn't be pushing back on anything I said either. And because we have so many resources at our fingertips, that's not never going to be helpful.
That's called
It's
how we were
interesting.
raised.
Yeah, I was going to say
That, you know
there's
what
a
I'm
couple
saying?
of
Like,
things. Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One, all of those resources weren't available, so we had to listen to the people who knew, and the people who knew were the grown people.
Yeah.
Two, you come from certain communities, and it doesn't matter what you think. The grown people do the thinking, right? So you can think when you're grown. Right now, we think and we tell you.
Yeah.
But I also think three, so much had to come through struggle. So much of the information that you just click on, people had to go through struggle to have access to it, to be allowed to engage with it, and then to offer it so that it wasn't this, you just know. And from that much struggle and that time comes wisdom, right? Because now I have years under my belt. So it's one thing to have information, it's another thing to know what to do with that information. And that knowing what to do with that information comes from wisdom. And so I think what you often find is a generation of people saying, okay, I may not be able to Google it as fast as you, but I had to carry books to school. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, but I do agree that as a person who, my mom, her relationship with Jesus was, Jesus he has to meet my needs. I am a single mom. I have no way of doing this. The only way we're going to make it is if Jesus shows up. I watched that. My relationship with Jesus was, you have to rescue me from this drama, right? Like, it's not the same kind of I'm desperate for the financial help. I have drama in my life. And I think what each generation doesn't realize is that the relationship with Jesus is different because of the access or the experience of not just the individual, but the generation. I would love to know what you guys would say if I could tell boomers or Gen Xers or millennials something in particular about the way we process our faith. What would that thing be?
I think is a little bit of what I've said already. Like, I don't want to just believe something because somebody told me it.
Mm.
I do want, and I'm not saying like every single thing needs to have an explanation because I already don't know everything.
Mhm.
But like if I am engaging with Gen or boomers or whoever it is, I want you to have a conversation with me. Like
Yeah, no,
I
that's
want to
valid. Yes,
I want
that's
to
good.
be able to like push back on your thoughts and you not just drop the conversation
Or
because
feel like it's disrespect.
or feel like it's disrespect.
Yeah.
Um and I think too, and I've had this conversation with some people too. Like I think that sometimes boomers don't answer because they didn't search for those answers themselves. They didn't question things. They just
Well, they weren't allowed. Yes, and
yeah.
they
So
didn't have access. So even
exactly.
if
So
they
it's
had the
like
questions, they couldn't go just find it.
so instead of engaging in us trying to get these answers together, it's just an end of a conversation.
I think that's great. I think there's intimidation. And I think that that's the generational divide where I have all this knowledge of what it means to spend time with Jesus, to walk with Jesus, but I don't have the language or the theological degree or pedigree. So I feel intimidated by all the knowledge you have. You know what I'm saying?
And
And so we
I
don't
would
meet.
say sometimes the examples people use are outdated for us as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it doesn't relate.
Oh, yes.
But I just one thing I was thinking about is like I would a con I would say for Gen Z is that we don't have patience in the disciplines of the spirit and being able
Mm,
to wait upon the Lord for like for me, if I pray for something, I want that answer immediately, just like I
yes.
can get other things,
Information.
other instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like older generations know how to wait upon the Lord better, how to be still, like even in quiet times with the Lord. Like there's so many things distracting me, and my brain is so active that just 5 minutes of silence is difficult. So that's something that we need
And
to work on.
that's what I want to press in on a little bit because, you know, oftentimes we're talking about how do we reach Gen Z or whatever, but now that Gen Z is becoming of age and now we
Yeah,
have Gen
y'all not
Alpha,
babies no more.
right? We have Gen Alpha now. I guess I'm trying to think of what's in the missionary of a Gen Z. So not like, so how does Gen Z reach other Gen Zers? How does Gen Z reach Gen Alpha? You know, because like, you know, and everyone is, as you're starting to see this new age, talking about Gen Alpha is the iPad, you know, they, you know, iPads raised
Yeah.
Gen Alpha. And so as you're starting to see another generation that you don't understand come up, you know, just like how do you reach one another and how do you reach the next generation?
I've noticed that I don't normally have to, and I'm not saying this is a good thing. I don't normally have to be the one bringing up Christianity, faith in the context of the world. Like people are having the conversations. I might be there, or people might come to me because of how I live my life, or that they're seeing something different. Like a lot of times, my friends are the ones asking me about a church service or a Bible study or a worship night. And then there are also times where I can just be at a brunch and at a party, and someone brings up Christianity. So it's really what you like to say, like our life on mission. I don't think that Gen Z is it. I think that Gen Z is going to be meeting people in real world, and especially with social justice issues, social topics, like talking about these things with people, but also bringing it back to Jesus is how I do mission, or how I try to approach it a lot.
Yeah. I say for me, like one, like I think be real. I think like if I'm gonna keep it a being, the internet is not a real place, and all of us know that. And sometimes the generations before us don't really understand
Grasp.
that. Yeah. And so like you have conversation with someone who said this online and they're like, yeah, I just said it online. Like, but that's not what I really believe.
Mm-hmm.
And they can tell the difference between someone who is fake, someone who's pandering versus someone who is real, authentic. And for me, like being a real human, even if it's your online presence, people flock more towards the person who's honest about their journey, about the rises, the falls, the mistakes, than the person who puts up a perfect image. Even like the stuff that goes viral, like when someone over processes, over produces, and different things like that, like that'll get the what like they'll get bots. It'll get the millennials, like it'll get them, you know, but if a person can really just pull up their iPhone and whatever that camera looks like and just do something crazy,
Yeah.
and people, it connects more. And so, and the same thing in real life, like just being your real authentic self. Having aura helps. That's what I hear for Gen Alpha. But yeah, just being your real self and letting them see, like, because they know they can't touch online, but if they can see someone in front of them, a lot of the younger kids, they'll say, "You remind me of Duke Dennis," and he's like an internet celebrity.
One of the younger kids.
One of the younger kids.
One of the younger
Yeah.
kids.
And the thing is, they don't have access to Duke Dennis, so they're equating something they know is not real. But then the values and the things that I bring to the table, they learn to appreciate, and they appreciate someone who just spends time with them, who will go hoop, who will go. And then when they have questions, come to me, you know, or I'll challenge things that they're saying, things that they're doing. And I think that that's being real, being present, and not assuming anything and knowing the internet is fake.
Well, so then what makes faith credible for y'all?
I think that it's both encounters with the living God
Mhm.
and the Bible itself. Like for me, this is about reconstructing faith. And one thing I've learned is that we don't have to reconstruct a lot of the basic, simple things that I was taught as a little girl in church. It wasn't until I was in my 20s that I realized, like, these are foundational disciplines,
Mhm.
foundational things for a reason.
Mhm.
I don't need to reinvent the wheel. And things that have been working for 2,000 years is not about to change overnight.
Mhm.
Whether that's literally reading my Bible, like I've seen stuff about AI Bible studies and stuff. And I'm not saying I'm not making a I might make a judgment later, but I'm not saying anything about it, but it's just like literally getting a Bible, opening it up and reading it and praying, Holy Spirit, guide me through these scriptures and help me to understand these things, and praying the foundations. Like I think that reconstructing faith over engineers a lot. I think that people are doing it because they have ideas of how God is supposed to be and how God is supposed to show up. And my God wouldn't do this. My God would. How can a good God, do that? And they're just missing Jesus.
What you said was really beautiful because it's almost like you described in real life what he described about being online. It's like if faith is over engineered, if you take that camera picture and you do too much to it, we may like it for a while, but after a while we recognize it's not real.
Yeah.
And so you're saying what's credible to you is the basics of what has
Yeah.
been, and you go through life and you deconstruct, you reconstruct. I think people do that all the time safely. They told me I was this, I realized I'm not that, I changed that. But when you get back to the basics and you're like, Jesus, the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Even when we're spreading the gospel, like we don't have to do a big production to reach people. And even in doing that big production, it's like, are you trying to take the place of the Holy Spirit in reaching someone's heart and telling them the truth about Jesus? And we'll never be able to do that. So
Yeah. And for me, once again, the thing that has helped me keep my faith is seeing it, feeling it, touching it, and being embodied and it being real. Um, Once I failed and was still loved, I realized, oh, people can fail and
Mhm.
it can be real,
Mhm.
you know? Seeing God move in other people's lives. I remember in John 10, the Pharisees asked Jesus, like, are you the Messiah? And he's like, I've told you. And he's like, if you don't believe me, believe the works, you know? And like, just being in community and seeing God move in this person's life, in this person's life, in this person's life, seeing the transformation. You were like this, and then and all of a sudden you did a 360, and yet you still loved me when I wasn't at that point. Like those kinds of things help take what's out there and ethereal and make it real. And for me, that grounds me when I see someone online who's doing something counter or like something that's fake. I know, okay, that's just not the real thing because I've encountered for myself the real thing, or I've been through it myself and I know what's real. And so that's been the biggest thing. Watching the example of people who have held on to their faith through hard times helped me to realize where I can turn. And I tried it a different way. I had to go and I didn't just take it at face value. In other words, I went and did my own thing and found my own process, and it led me back to, okay, which way do I want? The way that I see online, the way that I tried and failed multiple times, or the way that seems to be working for the generation before me, or what I'm reading right here in Scripture. And so that's the biggest thing.
First of all, it blows my mind as a mom to sit and listen to a man talk and be like, oh, that's my son because he's saying these things, right? But
I'm
it
on TV,
also,
Mom.
but I think it's also really helpful and to recognize how much it's important for us to listen. Thank you, guys. I feel like we could talk forever, but we're going long. But I'm just so thankful to the two of you for sharing perspective and for being willing to just lay it out there for us.
Mm-hmm.
The voices of Gen Z matter. If we're going to see the gospel carried into the future, we have to listen, not just to respond, but to understand. Deconstruction for this generation isn't always about rejecting faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
Often it's about rejecting inauthentic faith, right? You got to have that aura. Our challenge is to help them encounter the real Jesus in the middle of their questions, to be able to ask questions and it be safe, and to trust that God is big enough to meet them there. Thank you, guys.
Amen.